So that's what we're working on. The TV everywhere concept, which is kind of Jeffrey Buick's vision originally, is really to say that you can't, in the future, you can't cut the cord and still get the programming that is being sold exclusively to the cable companies. It just doesn't make any sense. That it can't go that way. That you should get all the functionality you want in terms of mobility and get it anytime, anywhere, if you have a cable subscription, because then you bought the programming. It's really straightforward and fundamentally sound, and that's what we need to get to, or we're all going to put ourselves out of business.
Your company's heavily into advertising. Are apps? I mean, one of the things that I heard was that advertisers are liking the idea of the app environment because, like television, it's a contained environment, and the Google algorithm approach puts their brand beside things that they're not necessarily comfortable with. If Astral were to develop a business model where they would charge for an app, let me put you on the spot. Would you be open to discussions about sharing that new revenue stream with some of the content creators, or would it be your expectation that it would help to offset the losses of other aspects of your company?
Well, we always pay for our content, so we would always do so. How the mechanics of a particular transaction take place, in our view, are less important, and we don't tend to necessarily have a column for, well, this is for the linear right, this is for the SVOD right, this is for the online, this is for the for mobile. We don't tend to do that. There's usually the discussion and bargaining about what the overall bundle of rights should be, but we're well aware that if there's something that will help us drive revenue, then there's an expectation on those who provide that content to participate in some fashion. I think from our point of view, we're in different situations, obviously, than Paul and Kirstine, in terms of, we aggregate programming, we don't produce it. We rely on many of the good people in this room to produce programming. Programming for us. So our view, whether or not it's at the acquisition stage or even at the retail level, is to really look at how do we entice people, not coerce people. We don't have the power to coerce anybody. How do we entice people to take our service? And we found that the best way to do that, to drive that loyalty, to keep them interested, to keep them coming, is to say, listen, if you get a subscription to this service, you can watch it on your television set, you can watch it on demand on your television set, you can go online, and by extension then to mobility. And there again, we don't tend to price those things. We don't price those things differently. We say, please come to us, be a subscriber, and we will make sure that whatever content we have, that you can get access to that content any way you like to do it. And that's the approach we take.
Okay, let's turn to the terms of trade issue, because Paul, you were touching on a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the conditions of license was that there would be discussions with rights holders about the terms of trade. Can you update us on where those are? Because I think there was some sort of deadline of the spring of 2011 on that. Sure.
The producers and the broadcasters have gone back in earnest and have had several sessions. This is after quite a hiatus, and have been working in earnest to develop a terms of trade agreement. And we've been clear as an organization that we really support the idea of getting an agreement like that finalized. I think that there's points of agreement. I mean, I think everybody knows that we're trying to make the content available across various platforms in a way that can be exploited. That's what we're all working towards. There's an understanding, I think, on the broadcast, I don't speak for everybody, but an understanding on the broadcast side that the lengthy term of the existing arrangements is kind of doesn't make sense in this new world, and we need to be more flexible and sensitive to evolving innovations and new platforms. Some of the more challenging aspects relate to the production community looking to set out certain rights that are off limits to the broadcasters, and that's probably an area that we still need to spend more time in dialogue. I think it's hard for the broadcasters to say that that certain things are beyond reach, no matter what the economics are. And to balance that, I think what we'd probably say is, again, let's have the flexibility in these arrangements to figure out who can exploit more effectively. There's one other, I won't go on and on about it, but there's one other element which is a frustration on the producer side that rights get taken by the broadcasters and then don't get exploited. And we're also supportive of the notion that if a right's not being exploited, that it should be revert back so that it can be if somebody has a vision to do so. So, you know, I think there's a lot of common ground, a lot of good dialogue about it. The commission has been very clear that they'd like to see us come to a point of view on it. And I think there's a better momentum on this than there has been in the past. And I think we're looking to get this all sorted by April, and you know, we're all rolling up our sleeves trying to get it done.
Kirstine, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, we have probably the oldest, I guess maybe the only terms of trade agreement out there, because it was done back in 2002, but that was in the time when I don't think anybody knew an app would even ever exist. There certainly wasn't an idea of tablets or anything like that, so it obviously needs updating. So for the last while, we've been, again, having the same kind of conversations that the other broadcasters have been having, because it's important. It's important to be able to set really a partnership agreement is what you're doing, is really setting out the ground rules about how you guys are going to go together into this strange new world and kind of exploit what's going on, so that in a fair and equitable way. Because I don't think anybody wants, you know, what we all went through in the last couple of years in terms of kind of economic downturn. It also happened to the production community too, because they were affected by our own downturn. And it's very important, we know, it's important to any broadcaster to make sure that that industry is alive and vital and a vibrant one, because it needs to be able to have support in order to make the great shows, or we don't exist. So it's important that the partnership be something that is a fair one and that can actually be forward-looking, and we're having those same conversations as well. We really kind of, for the first time, I think, really opened kimono, as we say, the idea of, you know, how our funding works, how we get the money back, and I think it's important that we be honest and make sure that people understand the situation that we're in, and we understand the situation the producers are in, so we can come to some kind of agreement.
Now, the CRTC has said is if you don't, they'll impose one. Which would be your preference?
No, you always want to negotiate your own agreements. I think it's to everybody's benefit, because, you know, to have a third body come in and impose something is never good for anybody.
You know, you mentioned the difficulty that the independent community had over the last couple of years, and it wasn't just as a result of the shrinkage of what was happening to the networks. It was, you know, the CRTC decision allowing networks to count news as CanCon. A lot of documentary producers feel it's pretty much decimated an industry that was once, you know, one of the things that Canadian producers were well known for. Where do you see the future of documentary filmmaking, given the current financial situation and the current regulatory structure?
Well, it finds a way. Nature finds a way. Jeff Goldblum, Jurassic Park. Nature finds a way. And just popped into my head. Yeah, pretty good, eh?
I'm not sure the dinosaur reference is good, but
boy, that would be
yes, but remember in that one, the dinosaurs came back.
That's true.
and ate the people.
Yeah, they did eat the people. Listen, Paul, there are always some costs with these things.
Casualties.
Right, casualties, exactly. That movie's probably playing on MPix, which is available on television, on demand.
Brought to you by.
Online, commercial free, except here, of course. Documentary will find a way. Actually, I'm pleased to say, in our case, when we had launched HBO Canada has a long history of a documentary tradition, and prior to then, we'd not been acquiring documentary films on the movie network. But HBO Canada supplies them, and we've actually also added to that in terms of Canadian. It's not our focal point on the movie network necessarily, but you know, I think we do support it, and I think that, as I said, nature finds a way.
Will you be looking for more documentaries than you were in the last year?
I don't know that we would particularly, but as I said, it's not specific, at least in our unit. We have a French language service, Canal Day, specialty service, and of course they're always on the hunt for documentary. But as I said, where we really throw our support is behind dramatic film. That's our raison d'etre on the movie network, whether it's feature films, Incendie, Barney's version, whether it's serial programming. But as I said, there's another example where some money is now available for documentary.
You know, so much of this industry, the television industry, was built to help us protect ourselves from the power of American culture. One of the things that became obvious in Robert's presentation is that, you know, that's almost irrelevant, or rapidly becoming irrelevant as there is free trade in culture, that you can download anything, any kind of content from anywhere in the world. So Canada has to compete on its stories now. And we're competing in the English-speaking world. I'd like to ask each of you how you plan to help Canadian stories not be drowned out by the stories not only from the United States, but from India, from any other English-speaking country, so that 10 years from now, we don't suffer the same kind of fate as, you know, the Native American culture suffered in some ways once it was overwhelmed.
Well, our very existence is based on the
Right.
premise that we're there to help. You know, we're there to be the voice, you know, of Canadians, and we're there to be the place that because in prime time we're 100% Can and have been for quite some time. It's in terms of series and all the things that we commission. It's important that, you know, we know that there needs to be a big platform. I think there's a benefit to being a network, because by creating this relationship again with the Canadian audience, and they all of a sudden see the stories not just reflected in the places where they live, but actually, you know, there is a definite difference between life in Canada and life in the U.S. And as much as we all enjoy watching American programming, and the format of it is very easy to get into, and top 10 programs are very much dominated often by U.S. programming, there's a little breakthrough. Like, there are times now when we see the benefits when Canadians actually get into something that's their own. It is breaking through, and I think the best way to prepare for the future is to make sure that that you have a strong backbone. And, you know, by developing these shows, whether they're wholly Canadian, whether in co-production, when you have the opportunity, like Pillars of the Earth, which we did, you know, along with TMN, you know, these are opportunities for people to be focused on a world stage as well. Our shows are being sold, you know, 70, 80, you know, 100 countries plus. So I think that's the producer keeps that. That is not the business we're in. We are the place to be showcasing the show in Canada, but the producer has the opportunity to take those shows now, which are highly sellable, and take them around the world and really kind of stomp out the idea that, you know, that Canada is anything but number one. Like, we can be just as competitive as other English language programming internationally, and I think we're in a great place right now. It's going up, if anything.
I totally agree with that. I think there's some wonderful success stories, and we're thrilled to be involved with Rookie Blue, which was a Canadian E1 production that found its way to ABC, and also Combat Hospital, which I think the company's Sienna, that produced it in Canada, and again picked up by ABC. And when we see those sort of things happen, we look at the program not as great Canadian content, but as just great shows that are doing terrific ratings, and so there's not kind of a double standard going on in judging these things. You know, on a lesser, you know, stage, you know, our food programming has gone down to scripts in the U.S. Neatly, and some of the talent that has been nurtured in Canada are very well received on the U.S. specialty nets.
I mean, one of the things that people are saying about the Australian storytelling, though, is that they are learning to export Australian stories and make them hit in the world. And one of the rubs is that, yeah, we're doing much better at the quality of Canadian-produced programming, but are they Canadian stories, or are they stories made for the American market?
Well, I know that Kirstine will have something to say about that, but I mean, you know, Rookie Blue shot in Toronto. It's Toronto stories. It isn't Toronto dressed up to look like Chicago, which was the way it's been done before, and it works great.